Hi, so this is a quick video on the Iranian war and basically just how it's spreading, and it's even gone into Lebanon right now. So southern Lebanon in particular has it's faced strikes from Israel as well as a ground invasion, which is absolutely terrible. Hundreds are killed in Lebanon, and thousands are fleeing from the aggressive measures that are currently happening. They're fully backed by the United States as well. And this is on top of the 2.5 year war they've had raging against Palestine at the moment, of over 70,000, and over even could reach into the hundreds and hundreds of thousands at this moment. Just still continuing and just generally going on and it's part of the whole Israeli and capitalist agenda, just to crush the Middle East and make the space available for the United States and oil executives and etc. So Trump is currently trying to peddle money out of Congress as well, and in order to fund this Iranian war, and he's attempting to increase the military budget to $1.5 trillion at the moment, which will obviously go to the increase in massive US debt, which is hundreds and hundreds of trillions of dollars right now. And basically the public debt is obviously the number one thing that the capitalist class do not care about at all, because it's just paid by the public rather than just themselves, really. So any debt that goes towards the military is basically a free pool of change that the ruling class gets to pick at. And obviously it's going to make the inevitable crash that's going to happen. It's just going to spiral out of control because of this massive debt that's accumulated. So Trump, out of this as well, is also trying to gain more allies in Europe. For example, Starmer in the United Kingdom is one of them. He's also reopening the Strait of Hormuz as well, which is a fifth of the world's oil supply. And so basically pumping this oil onto the market, which is currently the top 32 biggest capitalist countries are currently pumping 400 million barrels worth of oil onto the global market. And even with this influx of oil, it's not bringing down the price of it at all, and is really aggravating the cost of living crisis that lingers worldwide in the capitalist system. So Starmer was previously flip-flopping on his position to either go into the war or be against it, but he's now stated that he's firmly against it, since due to the massive unpopularity that it could bring, especially with the previous stances on Israel. So he has decided not to let this accumulate into something that could be potentially used against him. He has not allowed the United States to have access to UK warships, but he has allowed them to have access to their military bases. Even if it's unpopular in the UK, is incredibly unpopular in the United States as well. Only 29% of Americans actually support the US strikes at the moment. And this is because the US is more focused on its cost of living crisis right now. So the oil prices and the food prices and the cost of everything in general, the rent. Mamdani in particular wanted a rent freeze. This attitudes have been echoing throughout the United States in different ways and different fashions, and people are fed up of Trump's wars of aggression, his bombing, which are obviously very expensive and do not really benefit the working class at the moment at all. So even 29% of Americans approve of the US strikes. This is even surprising that, considering that Iran is obviously always has been very, very, very unpopular, even amongst even just regular working class people as well. Iran was one of the most brutal dictatorships of the past 50 years as well. But despite this obvious brutality of the Iranian regime, the working class in America and elsewhere in Europe and the UK obviously don't see this act of aggression as supportive of the day-to-day and realities that exist right now, and the cost of living crisis in particular. Obviously this war of aggression is just to cover up Trump's inabilities to actually solve the fundamental problems of capitalism, particularly the price of oil, the price of rent, and all these day-to-day issues that just can't be covered up with a phony war, for example. And in many ways, it's just adding more fuel to the fire of the Palestine protests, for example, that exist all throughout the world. And more money going to Israel is not going to solve this this crisis that's happening, and this this brutal imperialism and this brutal form of capitalism that's currently existing at the moment. And this is obviously on top of a general discontent with the billionaire class as well, especially with Epstein's Island and the people surrounding Epstein. They found out Jeffrey Epstein had a net worth of $600 million, so he was clearly in that. He clearly represented a ruling class interest, and he clearly had obvious links, not just in terms with deviant behavior, but in terms of wealth as well. So there is this fundamental link between the capitalist class and just their interest not being representative of the broader working class in general. And there's obviously this crust of this layer of corruption that's obvious, and that you can see in the United States government. And Trump really, though he managed to propel himself onto the his political career has been based on draining the swamp, as he says, or fighting against the establishment Democrats, as he says. It just shows that he's another piece of the problem, and it shows that there really needs to be a mass working class party in the United States to really solve this fundamental problem and really bridge the gap in many ways between the fundamental issues and what really goes on in government. And another important thing that should be said as well is that Iran had a very close connection to Russia and China as well, and now it's the attempt is being made to change that from a Russia-China alliance into an Israel-American alliance in Iran at the moment. And obviously this is obviously connected to capitalism as well, but this obvious shift is also to basically get back at China in many ways, because the US is struggling massively at the moment with its economy right now. It has a huge debt with China after the financial crash. And China is also having more influence in a lot of countries where the United States used to be. So American imperialism is not as strong and as belligerent as it once was, even though it's more aggressive to maintain that. It doesn't manage to have the same kind of hegemonic power that it used to have in those regions. So, for example, if you take Brazil right now, Brazil was dominated by American commodities previously. So you had American cars, you had just American goods, American products entering into Brazil, and they would typically buy these expensive products from the United States at inflated prices. And right now, that relationship is changing to Chinese goods instead. So you have Chinese cars and Chinese phones that exist in Brazil right now, and this really, for the United States and Trump in particular, this spits in the Monroe Doctrine that it wishes to maintain. So you have the Donroe Doctrine right now that's currently attempting to repatch this rise in Chinese influence, and this is obviously it is tied to capitalism in many ways as well. And Trump built his platform on some sort of phony nationalism as well. That obviously the working class now is obviously getting very alienated with it, since 29% only approve of this current war that's happening in Iran. And obviously the Brazilian consumers as well, they are price sensitive, so they're going to go for the cheaper option rather than the more expensive American cars, American phones. And this is also linked to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative as well, which is China's attempt to bridge the gap between developing countries and themselves that they wish to maintain a positive relationship with by giving them more debt forgiveness and cheaper and accessible loans compared to the IMF and the World Bank. So as China is spreading its influence around the world, this in many ways alienates a lot of developing countries from entering into United States hegemony as well. And since the United States went into a lot of debt due to the financial crash, it took out a lot of loans from China at the time. This means that China is now integrated into the world system on a massive scale. Since they weren't affected by the recession that happened shortly after the crash in 2010ish. But since China relies on these loans from the United States and worldwide, it means that this level of integration forces China to rely on these loans in order to balance its books essentially. So if the United States doesn't manage to maintain itself in terms of growth and productivity, and these loans default, that means China is going to struggle as well as a result, since this level of integration affects them both to some degree or another. And the most important thing that needs to be stated is that even though Ali Khamenei, his regime was very brutal, and the new Ayatollah would be brutal as well, even the continuation of this this nationalism that it is trying to maintain, that doesn't necessarily mean that a US intervention or US bombing is going to solve that problem as well, because foreign policy at the end of the day is dictated according to private interests. So this should be like our attitude into responding to this crisis, is that the bombing is not going to solve the fundamental problems of capitalism, and it's not. And by getting rid of Iran, even if it was to happen tomorrow, for example, the people are going to suffer as a result, and the working class are going to suffer as well, but since they pay the prices of the weapons contractors and the manufacturing of missiles and bombing equipment to facilitate in this overthrow, they're also going to pay in their lives as well. So the empire feeds off the republic, as Michael Parenti says. And the United States is going to keep trying to overthrow the Iranian regime until they get a client state that's compatible and allows for cheap investment and cheap opportunities to make profit. So the Iranian regime is a current, it's a national regime, and it overthrew the previous Shah regime, which was a strong U.S. puppet at the time, and the current regime, it protects and reinvests a lot of its oil profits, to fuel its own national interest, and an interest that usually takes care of its own elite rather than the working class. But despite this, is still not acceptable for foreign investors, particularly the oil executives in the West, who want to monopolize their control and expand their influence and take over the country in that way, in that aggressive manner. So what's currently happening in the UK right now is that Starmer and the UK government has released a £53 million package to alleviate the cost of living crisis from oil inflation. And it's a far from satisfactory amount that's actually going to solve a lot of the fundamental problems that Starmer himself created. So Starmer has already alienated himself from most of, if not all, of the working class at the moment. His stance on Gaza has really distanced himself from a lot of his Muslim section of the working class. For example, in the 2024 general election, a lot of people voted for independent MPs, against those Labour seats in particular, and even Wes Streeting nearly lost his vote to an independent MP as well. So currently there's 4 independent MPs as well as Jeremy Corbyn, making them 5. And this was attempted to be funneled into a mass workers' party with your party that has currently collapsed due to its bad leadership. But despite this, it shows that an alternative for Labour still needs to be opened up, and whether the Greens could facilitate that is probably not the case in many ways, which should be settled in another video, I'd say. But that's all I want to say at the moment, so thanks.